positive acceptance.
Hey everyone, welcome to the tech capital of the world, Kernsville, North Carolina. Kevin, it is a gorgeous day here in the middle of North Carolina, the best state in the world.
There you go, tech capital of the world.
Extra positive today. So because we talk about
That's
positivity.
it.
So
we are. Yeah. We're all positive today. We're going to talk about the positivity performance loop, aren't we?
Yeah. And I think it's important. I tweeted it out, and I think that everyone, I know it's our YouTube show, but like everyone should listen to this because people don't talk about this much at all. And we tend to be surrounded by negative. If you watch news all negative, man. It only shows, if it bleeds, it leads. If it's on fire, show it at 6, that kind of stuff, They never really show the guy saving the cat out of the tree or anything like that anymore.
We often talk about this, don't we? It comes up all the time for us. Yeah. We're always talking about this in one way or another. And often when we kind of wrote this down, I started looking back and I was like, oh yeah, we talk about this stuff all the time in little sections. Like we'll reference this all the time, and so we thought, this would be cool to have a whole show on this and talk about a system that we use, really.
Yeah, it's a mindset that I have in general, and so I am positive, and people have accused me of being overly positive sometimes, But a personal story. I know I talk about bike riding a lot, but like a week before my bike race, I was riding in a place called Liberty, North Carolina, and I was trying to climb a hill, and my back hurt so much that my left leg quit working, and I had to call and get someone to come and get me. It's and this was 7 days before this race. Yeah. And so I remember thinking on the day of the race, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Can I ride 50 miles? I don't know. And then my positive mindset kicks in. It's like, what's the worst that can happen? Just call Kelly. She'll come and get you.
Right.
Off you go.
I might not be able to explain where I am exactly. I'm in the middle of a field, halfway up a mountain. Can you bring the car?
Life 360 can find us. So that. It's but I finished and I did it, and I think that is a lot of it was I have things like, how hard can this be? This is the way I think about things. How hard can that be? Like, there's a lot of people that do that. Like, why can't we do that? We just released a course. We didn't make the course because we thought no one would buy it. We made the course because we think a lot of people will buy it. And that's our mindset. And so this loop that you get in causes you to think in a certain way, which dictates your actions. And this is the thing that a lot of people do. There's the opposite of this, the negative feedback. We'll talk about it in a second. That also loop dictates actions. And if you don't believe that certain things are going to happen or there's a positive outcome, then your actions change, So for example, you could talk to people and you can tell them they could weigh 300 pounds and you could say, you need to lose weight because it'd help your health or whatever. And they'll tell you it's impossible. I can't lose weight. Well, no, it's not impossible. You can, you can.
Right. It's difficult.
I'm not saying
it can be
easy.
Difficult. Yeah.
We'll start with no fried chicken this week. Like, how about we do that? It's but you have to convince people that there are opportunities out there. There are things that can happen. Your circumstances can change. And even in the midst of a negative time in your life, there's always can be a positive outcome. Okay, the market's down. Like, what do I do? Well, there's a buying opportunity, or this thing, caught on fire, my house burned down. What do I do? Is life over and that kind of stuff? And so you can, even in difficult circumstances, you can find a positive ray of somewhere to think positive about. And I think that's what we're talking about. And that dictates our three things, which is recognize those opportunities and then act to take positive actions towards those opportunities, and sustain is repeating those activities, but also remembering the small wins, celebrating the small wins when you get things, when you happen, celebrate those small wins. And I think that helps you stay in the sustainability loop. And we call that RAS, so.
For me, the important one in there is when we're talking about this is the act part. A lot of people get stuck on the act part. It's easy to recognize something sometimes. That's the easiest part. The difficult part is to act. It's to actually take the jump, right? To do the thing. That's where people get stuck.
Yeah.
a lot of
And we
times.
see this a lot. We see like people overanalyze things, or they over-index on like, what if I fail? They have these nightmare scenarios that I fail, like people are just going to laugh at me or make fun of me or post videos about me failing,
Yep.
those kind of things. And so, what if I fail publicly? That's awful, you know. And then you have things like parents and friends and family that they'll look down on me if I'm not successful. So I just won't do anything. You know, and then the other side is like,
Right.
so what? Okay, so mom's not proud of me. All right, so I'm still gonna do it. I'm still gonna try. You know, like because I think I can do it. You know, I think I can win or whatever. And really,
Yeah.
some of our fears are unjustified. Like some of them, those fears never happen. Like they never ever happen. And they're never. You know, people don't make fun of you, or they don't post about
Right.
you, or whatever it is you think is
Right.
kind of the worst case scenario is, and you just fail at something. You know, or maybe you win. Maybe you're successful at it. So
Yeah, your
you have to.
fears. I think this is common. Your fears are
Yeah.
often worse than reality, aren't they? That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You make it seem worse than it actually is ever going to be because you always think of the worst outcomes for things,
Right. Yeah.
and they're not. It's not usually that way. One thing before we move on, though, we'll talk about this.
Yeah.
You mentioned the course. Shameless plug for the course because we're here.
Yeah.
And I happen to have the website up over here on the screen. So,
Yeah.
because we still have a sale going on, so I just want to mention sale.
Yeah.
There's still use coupon code Blazer for $3.95 off annual pricing. That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
Go to learn.codefoundry.com. You can buy the new
And
course.
that's for a
which has
full year. The new complete Blazer course. We also we have a bunch of other courses out there for you, and so we can
Yep.
break you into that world of coding. We're going
That
to
was
talk a
my
little bit about
shameless
coding
plug,
later
by the
on.
way.
Yeah. So we think
Sad
that
fun.
coding is still important, and that's why we made the course. We didn't make the course because we don't think coding is important anymore. Like,
Yeah, and I
we
think
made it because we think it's important.
later on when we're talking about this,
Yeah.
we'll try and like push this onto coding as well and try and like map
Right.
it onto coding because some of the things we're talking about. We'll definitely talk about AI because that's one of the things
Yeah.
we'd definitely get to. But
Right.
let's talk about like let's talk about understanding that negative feedback loop to start off with. Then, like what is that? Like what does that look like?
So I am convinced. I meet a lot of people and walking, and we all do. We all have people around us that are like this. But like there are people that have this self-fulfilling doom prophecy. Like in other words, like they don't believe that anything can happen. Therefore, they don't do anything. Therefore, the worst fear comes true because they didn't take any actions to.
Right, your actual inaction is making it happen, isn't it? Or sometimes
It's
the
make it
actions
happen.
are making it
Yeah.
happen.
Right. Yeah. So like, therefore, like, and I can see this, it's not like I'm a spring chicken or I'm super skinny, but like, as I went in a cycle, I tried to lose weight. And there were some days where like, I'm just going to eat a donut today, man. Like, so like, but you have to like take those negative ones that happen and you're like, and the next day you do better. And so, but some people just stay in that loop.
Yeah.
And they feel like there is no hope.
Yeah.
There is no whatever. And even when you show people, listen, look at all these other people that have done this. And they'll say, well, that's luck or
luck, that's
me.
the big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they had an advantage somehow for
I had some other advantage. Yeah, I could do that if, whatever. And so like, in other words, they justify the obvious success that they see out there to make sure that they can still justify their inaction. And so like, it's this feedback loop that comes in there. And typically they have negative self-talk, and this is really hard to do. And so like, and I can't say that I've never had a negative thought in my brain. We all do, but a lot of times your brain will tell you, and I think maybe it's a flight or fight mechanism. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know. But like when you're trying to do something fairly difficult, your brain will bring up all these bad things, like you could wreck and tear your shoulder up, like in a bike race, that's one of the thoughts that rang up into my head. And I remember telling my brain, well, I've already done that. So like,
right.
So like, I'm okay, And so like, you have to like avoid the negative self-talk. The other thing that negative people tend to do, and they don't realize this, is they surround themselves by other negative people. And it becomes this really kind of intro friendship, negative feedback.
That negative feedback loop can be bad. We've seen this in the past in cohorts in Foundry, where it takes kind of the one bad seed kind of thing. It can be one person, and they can wreck an entire cohort. The attitude of the entire cohort can be brought down by one person. Very
And I
easy.
saw this happen, and I remember when it happened, it tore down a whole cohort because of this one guy.
Yeah.
And the one guy didn't believe he could do it, and that's the whole problem. So he had to convince the
Right.
rest of the group that they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And and so it took us a lot of work to go to each individual and say, "Don't listen to that guy." And what I've learned from that, and this is why at Coder Foundry we dismiss people. Like it's like if I see that happening again, we just go and say, "This isn't right for you. We need to get you out of
Yeah.
here because you're going to ruin the other guys that
Yes.
are guys and ladies in here." And
Yep.
and we don't tell them that, but we say you got to leave because, and we come up with a reason, give them their money back, and send them on their way.
Yep.
Because like we can't have that negative talk in there. So it doesn't mean that everything's easy or everything's possible. It just means that you can't have this negative feedback loop in there. The other thing that we see a lot in negativity is we see people come from the cohort here, graduate at the top of the class. And listen, let me say this. If you think I'm talking about you because you came to Coder Foundry, I'm not. But if you did this, I want you to understand, like, this is what you did. But they will not take an interview over the fear of getting rejected. And we're telling them, like, you passed the cohort. Trust me, if you can come in at Coder Foundry and you pass at the top of a Coder Foundry cohort, you absolutely are going to work in this industry. Like, it is way too difficult to get through this thing to begin with. But to graduate at the top, super hard. And every single person that we see do this eventually lands at the top end because the way we teach and the way we do it. But then we've had some people that just won't take an interview because they're afraid to do it, or they feel like I don't know enough. So they go on another learning journey, go to another boot camp or another school, get another degree, learn machine learning, which has nothing to do with web development. Just get a web dev job. They'll pay you to learn the next thing. We're trying to convince them to do it. And so we say they overanalyze things and they think they can't do it. And therefore they go on a different deviation.
The self-doubt is just really strong with some people, isn't it? It's difficult to get over. But I think recognizing that and getting over it makes people successful. We've had people that have come in and done exactly that. And we've convinced them, like, no, you need to just do this. You're like, please just do it. And it's often something like, it's either take the interview or it's just like you convincing somebody to show the bug tracker, right, in an interview. Be like, look, they're not going to ask to see it. You're going to have to tell them to, and they're like, I don't think I can do that. I'm like, look, just do it.
Take a chance.
Just do it. Take the chance. You're not going to come across as an idiot or pushy or whatever you think is going to be bad is not bad. They're going to look at the app and be, oh, you made that, and that's and you've convinced them that, and that's worked.
Yeah,
but it's difficult for some people to take that on board. I get it. It is.
Right. It's hard, and it's counterintuitive because your brain is telling you one thing to run away, to flight, to run to safety. It's really safe to not do anything. That's run to safety. Right. It's very hard to go out and just take an interview and risk rejection. What I try to tell people coming to the cohort now is like, I need to get you to 5 interviews. I need you to be 20% successful. That means we're going to get 4 no's and 1 yes. Only need 1 yes. Like you can't take 5 jobs. I know there's jobs out there.
And you might get 4 no's, but you might get 4 no's and then 1 yes, right? But the 4 no's, don't let the first 2 or 3 no's be the ones that like say, I'm not doing this anymore, because we've seen that too.
Yeah. The other thing is that I think that positive people do, in a trait that I see a lot, is positive people, even when they fail, look at that as a learning opportunity or something they can gain from it. And, it's like, you've heard the Thomas Edison quote, I know 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. But like, it's just true. Like where they'll look at it and go, okay, I didn't do that. I didn't answer that interview question well. I need to go study arrays or binary trees now, or whatever it is, like they know they identify the weakness and they work on that weakness and then they get better. And they use it as an improvement loop, even when you have a negative outcome. Whereas negative people look at negative outcomes that causes them to quit. Right. And they won't do it because that was painful or embarrassing or whatever. And typically, man, like I've put a quote out there before, like, no one is keeping scores about your failed interviews. There's not a secret network of like CTOs that they get in the room like, did you see that idiot that came in last week?
You're right. You're not walking into an interview and that person has a check sheet of how many previous failures you've had.
Right, yeah.
They don't have that. It's a clean sheet. Yeah.
There's no stats about you or anything like that. And so but like, I think that's really what bothers people, that the embarrassment or fear of failure is the big motivator. And what I saw, Jacob here at work, he was telling me about a YouTube channel right before I walked in here. He goes, this guy's a YouTube channel who he has every single day he goes out to get rejected in order to be better at taking rejection. So he asks, it's kind of dumb, but he asks these outlandish things so that someone will say no. Like he'll walk into a store and say, can I have this shirt for free?
Right.
You know, and then they'll say no. And he learns to, it's called rejection therapy. Like he like learns to take rejection and get used to that.
Because here's the thing, 90% of people probably wouldn't go and do that.
Right.
Like, or I should say would find it difficult doing that, right? Yeah. It's like there's a very small percentage of people that are okay with just like, that's easy, I can do that. But there's a large group of us who would just be like, I don't think I could do that. Like,
I mean, some of us that we'll buy a product because we don't want to have conflict or face rejection. The product doesn't work. We don't want to return it because we're embarrassed to return it to the store. You know, like, you know, that's the one thing I love about my life. She'll return anything. Like, you know, like, oh, that didn't work. That steak was wrong. She returns food to the grocery store. It's like, okay, that's different. But, you know, like, I wouldn't do that.
No, you're right. You know. I wouldn't do that either. You're right. There is like a line for me, but you're right. Some people are okay with that.
Yeah.
Some people maybe we should be okay with that.
Take it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so but you'll lose potential because of your negative output. The positivity loop allows you to reach your potential better, and you have better outcomes for those people. And you look at positive people, and they have better outcomes because they believe they can do it, and they see the opportunities.
Okay, so let's talk about some ways then to break free of that negative feedback loop.
Here's my one, and I don't want to be like overly preachy here, but like when you wake up in the morning, I think if you could start with like saying one thing you're thankful for, even if you're in like the depths of depression, you can just say, hey, I'm breathing today. You know, like it's like I made it through last night. Last night was tough, you know, like, you know, I remember someone when I was at a funeral and they were trying to talk about this dad at a funeral, and like it was really hard. The guy was like really beat. And one of the older son came up and he goes, at least he quit drinking, you know. And I'm like, he found a positive in this guy that was, I didn't know the guy. I knew one of the kids, you know, so I didn't know the dad or whatsoever. Yep. And I walked out of there like, man, like I've got to improve my life because I don't want to have a funeral like that. But like, you know, like, but he found the positive thing from it. And so we need to have a positive thought at least once a day where either you thank for being there or thank someone else for doing something. Try positivity, you know. In all your interactions, even if it's the person at the coffee store, you know, thank them for making the coffee or whatever. Just start
with that Starbucks barista
small,
a $2 tip for a change.
Yeah, or at least say, I don't have $2, man, but this is the best coffee I've ever had today. I'm just glad you were here to make it. You know, something like that. Yeah. And then try to surround yourself with supportive people, and then remove some of the negative people in your life. Now, I'm not saying go get a divorce or like whatever. I'm not giving you marriage advice. I'm just saying, like, you know, you do have certain friends maybe that are just super negative all the time. And like, you got to find that one ray of sunshine somewhere in your life. And then regularly reflect on the progress you're making towards your goals or the things you have achieved, and look back on those things and like,
yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one for me. It's like,
and it's kind of cool.
In the world of coding, that's easy to do because you should be building things. So you can always look back on something you've built. If you look back on something you built, let's say that you've been in this journey for 12 months, 6 months, whatever it is, however long, go and look back at something that you built 6 months ago, 12 months ago, and reflect on that. And you should be like, oh, wow, that's
garbage.
That's garbage. Yes, you should be like, wow.
Look how good I am now.
Yes. Or you could be like, that's pretty good, but I could build that in like 10 minutes now, and it took me like 3 days. Also, you know, you should be able to, you should be able to look back and be like, oh, I could do that again very easily, or wow, I could build a way better version of that now.
Right. And I think that's what you do. You take process. Now, what we do is we tell people in the boot camp, you're climbing Mount Everest here. Every now and then we're going to stop and look down the mountain and see how far we came up.
Yep.
It's uphill all the way, but there are pinnacles that we reach when we build things. We have a capstone project or you do something like that. And it's good to celebrate those wins. Say, look, you couldn't build an HTML page 3 weeks ago. You didn't know what a head tag was. I mean, like now you do, you know, so, and people always, especially in coding, they always struggle with where they're at currently because they feel like, especially new learners, I need to know everything. And so like, I'm struggling with this, and we're like, well, no, you know, JavaScript, HTML, CSS now. Yeah, we don't know C# yet. Like, but I'll never get that. Well, you got the other stuff,
Right.
like, so like
because
we're making progress,
because
we're
that
moving.
mentality will follow you along forever, because you will never know
Especially in
everything.
coding.
You will never know everything. So you're always going to have that. Again, we've seen people come to the cohort and we recognize it early on that they have that mentality, like, you're going to have to change. You have to change that, because that you're never ever going to succeed in your eyes, because the goal is always moving, always.
Yeah,
so
and I think that's
you're never going to reach
any profession. We'll never know everything about editing, graphic design, sales, like marketing. Like, there's always something to know or something to know. Well, even if you're a Michelin chef, there's stuff you can learn about cooking probably still. Like, you could go to another restaurant, like, wow, that's a good idea. Like, that guy can cook a hot dog. Like, I never thought about that. He elevated hot dogs.
It's more likely he made some seafoam air that you ingest on a plate through a straw or something.
Yeah. But I think regularly reflect on your progress, and then change your mindset to be positive every single day, at least starting out. And sometimes those negative thoughts come in, but like, try to counter those with positive thoughts. And if you can surround yourself with at least one positive person, that would be good. It'd help you with your mindset. Someone else who thinks differently than you do about certain things.
Okay, so big hanging thing over all this thing, over all of this positivity talk. You can say all the positivity you want to talk about, but
AI is still a thing.
But AI is still a thing. So what do we do with that?
What bothers me about AI in general? There's a couple things that bother me about AI. Number one is, like, it is an absolute what I call a screen shift. Like, in other words, like, we've seen screen shifts before, and I've talked about this a lot. But we had, like, you had mainframes, and you went to desktop, and then you went to web, then you went to mobile, and so you had those monumental shifts that exploded the internet. And now this thing comes out, and we go, AI is going to change the way we do stuff. And they're like, yeah, but it's going to take all the jobs. In fact, there's a lot of people think that ChatGPT may be the last app ever written. I mean, that's it. That's the end of the road. That's the end of game. That's it. That's it. That's all we need. We don't need anything else. No one's ever going to invent anything new. There's no new frameworks coming out. Every job will be taken over by AI. And this is the negative outset. And unfortunately, on Twitter, social media, whatever, those people dominate the landscape.
Yeah, it gets clicks because it's like that same positive versus negative news, isn't it? It's the same thing.
Very few people watch this positive talk video because they want to hear it. They want to hear the negative talk. They want to hear that the world's ending. That's the way we want.
True. Human nature, I guess.
But the thing that I don't understand is people that are saying these things about coding, the profession or whatever, aren't in the profession, really. Like, there's a lot of people that have never coded anything in their life, and they're telling me, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, man, I'm trying to build something right now. And I'm telling you right now, I can't prompt it good enough. And then you'll see the other prompt bros will say, well, just get good at prompting. I'm like, I think I'm pretty good at prompting. I'm not saying I'm the best prompter in the world, but like I should be able to at least get a landing page out of this thing, and I can't do it, So like, why? Or a landing page that I want. In other words, like, yes, it'll build a landing page, but it won't build the one that I want or match the vision that I have, or end up having to really fix it. And so, like, I think that coding taking over every single job in the world, like Bill Gates has said, we'll build on universal basic income, you won't have to do anything. It's just grossly overstated. Like, it's like, I would say it's near impossibility. If anything's impossibility, when you start thinking about every job that we do, like, there's a lot of invention that we just don't have,
it's still, the art of coding is still an art. It is creative. It is not and cannot be done by something that isn't creative. And AI isn't creative. It's just not. No. It will never fix a solution. It'll never come up with a solution to a problem, right? It'll only look at previous problems and match them. It's the same way computers have always worked. It's just a new interface for it.
It's a new interface. Now, here's what I do believe. Will coding, the way we do it, change? It's very likely that we may...
100%.
The way we code could change.
It always has, though.
Yeah, it always has. Like, it's for the last years, the IDE's gotten better and better and better. The things we do. But what I would say is, if that changes to a drastic degree where we're typing less and we can get the code to do more, here's what I will promise you. The types of apps will get more complex. And I think I have history to prove it. If you look at a website that I built in 1997 for AI consulting, if I could go back and look at that code, I was like, wow, that is like
Well, we know the most complex thing on it would
Yeah.
probably have been something JavaScript, right? That
It
was
a
the
form.
most complex thing on it, right?
I don't know if there was. I'd have to go look. Was JavaScript around in '97?
It might have been. It was close. Yeah.
It was around that time where all this stuff's really coming up. But I would say it's really super basic, really hard to do it because the technology didn't exist on the server platform. There was no bandwidth. There was none of these things that we have today that made web apps like that a breeze to build. It's a lot easier to build an app like that before. And so but the types of apps we're building now are way more complex, a lot more complexity. Building a full stack website is way more complex in 2025 than it was in 2015, 10 years ago. AI may make some of this stuff easier. It may completely automate parts of this, but then there's always going to be that other cutting edge part, the other thing that you can't quite automate yet. And that's where coders always have lived. We've always lived that way. We went from making static websites to dynamic websites, and then we said, you know what? Static websites, that's kind of beneath me. I don't do that work anymore. Let someone else do that. And we've had CMSs pop up from Framer to Webflow to like Squarespace to whatever that you can, Wix, whatever it is, and they still don't replace the coder. And a lot of times, when you need complex form integrations, you have other things like Zapier and things that you have to do to hook it all together, and you end up needing a developer to do it. Or they've got this thing put together, and then the developer comes around and says, "Yeah, I see what you're doing there, but maybe we need to transition this off to a more modern framework so that we can build an app." And those is where I think AI is going to maybe shine at making like an MVP. Maybe an idea, maybe a sales guy has an idea, or maybe a market expert has an idea, and they can like get their idea out in code, but it's never going to generate that whole thing from scratch. And there's a lot of people disagree with me on that. Like, I haven't seen it yet, man. Like, you got to show me that it's actually doing it. People say they're doing it right now, and I don't believe them. Like, there's no way. Like, it's just not possible. Not at a complex level.
Yeah.
As the complexity rises, the AI becomes more and more less of like a total code creation tool, where a code completion tool, where I think where Copilot is where the peak of this sits, where it's like, I know what I'm doing. This can help me type way faster. It can give me ideas that I would normally have to go to Stack Overflow or Google, and it replaces those things. And in a completion window, it makes things a lot faster. And I think that's where it could really change what we do. And then there'll be certain segments that you can prompt out for a well-worn past or well-known things. They just say, just make this for me, that kind of stuff. Like, we could generate the CRUD for it, which we can do before pre-AI anyway.
Yeah, I think you still need the human part for the business problem solving. Certainly one part of it, the kind of the logical thinking through of those problems. That's still a person. A person still needs to interact with the AI to do those things. Yeah,
and the people that make the most money in this business can talk to a business person, extract their like super vague requirements, and turn that into
why are they always super vague?
Like, I have an idea. Like, what is it? It's a website. Okay, give me a little more. A website that does this. It catches fish.
Exactly, and then you boil it down, and you're like, well, that's not really what you mean, because that's half the way it happens, isn't it? Like, I want this. Like, do you really though? And then you extract the real problem, which AI is never going to do. The real requirement, It's like, you didn't want that exactly. You jumped to what you thought was the solution, which wasn't the solution. You just needed to detail the problem better.
Yeah, right. So I think that's the thing. Now, here's what I firmly believe going forward is this: we have to look at it, and this is already occurring now. The shift has been going on for like 3 or 4 years now, and there's already been a bunch of companies that sprung up that are integrating AI into an app that does something. They're leveraging AI to make billions of dollars. Like, that's what they're doing, and some of these markets are going to explode over the next 5 years. But here's the little known truth: they're not going to be coded by Cursor. They're going to be coded by a developer. Like, the developer is the one that's going to integrate these AIs to do something. We don't know what those somethings are all the time, but we are seeing it in marketing. We've seen it in a lot of other segments where they're trying to do things. There's probably a healthcare solution, but I would imagine every single industry is going to have some kind of AI-centric solution that someone is going to have to build, and they are going to build it because they have a unique insight to a problem set, and they know how to code. They put those two things together, and they're like, I bet you an LLM could, whatever that is. And I would say I could probably come back here 3 years from now or next year, Kevin, and we could go, that's a really good idea.
Right.
Like, why did I think of that? You know, like
Yes.
that.
Oh, there's going to be lots of those.
Like, lots of those, you know, where they're going to, and then it's going to boom. And it's already booming. People just don't want to accept it. You know, like if you look at the valuation of just OpenAI, I mean, it made a chatbot app. That's all they did. Yeah. I don't know what billions it's up to now. Like it's a lot, you know? Yeah. And then every single big tech company and mid tech companies have some kind of LLM project going on. Well, because they believe that we're going to use these things to build something else. And now have all of those things come out yet? Not yet, but you're already seeing like blog post generation, marketing generation, you know, tweet generation, all this kind of stuff is coming out, image generation. But there's another layer that's coming too, because we're just now breaking the concept of like what's possible. And the only way you can think about what's possible is you got to know how systems are built, like how you can program it, you know. Otherwise, you'll walk into a Wendy's one day and talk to the menu and you'll go, oh, I can talk to the menu now. Oh, that's neat. Whereas the programmer goes in there and go, I wonder what LLM model they're using. Like, I wonder how they put that together.
Right,
I wonder how that works. Yeah, how's that work? You know, and if they did that, I bet you I could. And then you ask that question, like, what if, and then boom, product idea, they know how to code, and suddenly they're rolling something out. Yep. But they have to know how to build these systems and how it works. And if you don't, and you sit back on the sideline because you think that all the jobs are going to be taken, you're going to miss out on a screen shift that is just like web, just like the internet, just like the mobile explosion, you know, just like the desktop explosion that happened. It happens every 10 or 15 years, and you have to wait for the next one. But you'll be able to get a job in this new economy. But man, what if you can invent the next thing?
I also think just the big opportunity here too is knowing how to, not only that you are a developer, but knowing how to integrate AI is going to be a thing. Everybody's going to guess. It's like the mobile boom. It is like you're saying, the mobile boom, where everyone's like, we need a mobile app. We need a mobile app. Even if you were Pizza Hut needed a mobile app, well, everybody needed a mobile app. Everybody has a mobile app now, right? Actually, they're still building them. It's going to be the same thing. Everybody's going to want to integrate AI in some way, and it's just how does it get integrated into existing systems and figuring out how that app works. It's not a chatbot. The first section of these we saw was just like, was sticking the chatbot on a website and saying like, oh, we have AI now. Like, do you? There's better ways to use this. There are more creative ways to use this, and we're still thinking of them. And if you're a developer who can integrate AI into something, there's going to be thousands upon thousands of opportunities to do that. It's still a programmer has to do that.
Still do. And then the other thing that's going to happen is that we're going to build agents. And so agents are like these replicatable tasks. And because we can now interpret commands, they're easier to build now. So the LLM allows us to build things that we couldn't do previously because like you had to program the command, you had to recognize the command. And so that part is done with an LLM. And I really think that where we're coming is the LLM is going to do that part really, really well. And then we're going to take that command recognition and then turn it into an agent that can do 10,000 things, you know, whatever that is. It's going to make robotics possible. It's going to make wearables possible. Like before, we didn't build glasses. Well, Google did, you know, way back when, but it couldn't do anything. Like, so no one adopted it. And now we're talking about Apple in the next year and a half or 2 years or 3 years. They're going to have a wearable that you can talk to. Because you can talk to, and because of an LLM, it can recognize the command, which means it can do an action. And that is the other pinnacle of this that people are not thinking about. Robotics will come out because it's easy to interpret commands now, wearables, voice apps inside the car, outside the car, inside the home, you know, where you get frustrated with Siri, you put an LLM in that, suddenly Siri's different. Like it's totally different, you know. There's still like a billion lines of integration code that's got to be written in order to make the next version of Siri really, really cool. Like in other words, really cool, like where it can, you know, it's more Jarvis-like, and that's what that's what you want. So I think, but it's all going to need maintenance. The other thing that I think is going to happen is like there are going to be a lot of cursor-driven apps or a lot of AI-only apps that teams will have to come in and either rewrite, redevelop, rebuild, fix, modify, because it just doesn't hit the mark. So ultimately, business has to hit the mark of the audience. And see, that's the main goal. And when you realize this, like if the business, no matter how they get there, The goal is to make this widget that someone will buy. And if they can't make it with, Cursor or whatever it is, then they're going to have to get someone else to make it. And I think that's ultimately where coding skills will be primo, because, how can you change or modify a code base generated by AI if you can't read the code? Like, it's impossible.
Right.
Like, it's impossible. Like, how do you know when you like type in a prompt and then Cursor goes off and changes 800 files, which we saw, like, what is that thing changing? I just asked to change the style sheet. What's it doing? And so how do you do that? If you don't know how to debug, how do you step through a line of code if you don't know how to debug? If you don't know anything about security, how do you ever prompt it for security? So you're gonna have to have knowledge of all these underlying systems, how they're built. Another thing that I really come back to all the time is, even when you're prompting the bot, you gotta know, like, what framework do you want to use? Is this built in React? Is it built in Angular? Is it built in Blazor? What is it built in? Python? Or it'll just make up stuff and like half your code.
It'll try and mix stuff. It'll use multiple frameworks. It'll try and use old versions, new versions.
Yeah, it doesn't care, and it won't work, And so like people don't understand that nuance because they haven't coded before, and therefore they feel like it doesn't matter. I've heard people say just nonsensical things like, well, Bobby, frameworks become obsolete. It'll just invent its own language. I'm like, the website works a certain way. There are protocols. The browser is expecting HTML, CSS, and some kind of like interchange format over HTTP. It can't just invent anything. The browser won't work. It's like,
and could you imagine also what kind of thing it would invent based on what we know about it right now? It would be insane. It doesn't know how to generalize anything. It very much gives you a different solution every single time it generates something. It would just be a mishmash of bad.
And that's the other problem you run into with Cursor Project. And you can see them on Twitter, but just people ignore them. Some guy starts out and he goes, I get up to 60 files and this thing kind of loses its lunch. And that's like, that is a common occurrence over and over again for people that don't know how to code. The other people that are successful with it, if you want to use Cursor as your IDE and you know how to program in React or C# or whatever, go for it. Go do it, man. Like, if you feel like that's a better code completion tool than Copilot and that's the way you want to code, great. The people that are building apps with that, I promise you, if they're building something really robust, like people say they are, they know how to code. Yeah. They're not only prompting that. Like, and can you get better at prompting? I guess you can. Like, I've tried. And maybe I would get better at doing it and like really getting granular with my prompts and like really segmenting them and really planning it out. But I still say you'd have to have a knowledge of coding just to be able to do that part of it. To make it do it, you'd have to know like kind of what it's going to make at the end and like how you want this kind of organized in order to be able to do it. So like, I think coding is still going to be the skill to have going forward, even if you're not technically writing all of the code. That's just what I think,
Definitely.
So anyway, I think there's a great opportunity for it, man. Like, and if you just sit on the sideline and do nothing, and you think the robots are going to take over, I mean, that's a choice. It's definitely a choice. As we say, we live in a free country. You can do that, but don't waste 5 years thinking that this revolution is going to happen when it's probably going to look drastically different. Things are going to move forward, things are going to change and all this kind of stuff. But like learning it now allows you to participate in this AI-driven economy, I guess, if you want to call it. If we're in a web-driven economy now, maybe we'll be in an AI-driven economy until 2030 or 2040 or whatever it is, until the next shift comes and we have a new thing that we want to use. So, anyway, so what do we think we should do? How can we get people off the fence here? What should we do? I think they need to overcome the fear of AI. It's not going to be what you think it is,
Right.
But let's say that I'm wrong and the world does take over and the robots do take over. We're all screwed anyway. So like, you might as well learn something along the way and be as smart as you can, so there's no benefit of sitting on the couch and sitting this one out. There's really no benefit to that.
Now, there isn't, is there? No, you're right. If you're taking a gamble on that, there's no point in not participating, right? Because you're right. Either way, you're either going to if you don't participate, it's lose, right?
Just lose.
Either the AI takes over and you were correct, and you can sit there and say, I was correct anyway. I was right anyway. I told you. Or it doesn't, and now you've not learned anything.
Right. And
Lose
so like
lose.
but a great embrace a growth mindset, and that doesn't have to be coding. Like we're coding channel here, so we think coding is a great career. We think it's great big, but like don't abandon like all of college and all of learning because you think that AI is going to take over. And that's what we see, that people just won't do anything. Um, we can use AI as a learning tool now. It's
It's a great
becoming
learning
more and
tool.
more
Yeah.
accessible. Like utilize it, leverage it, use it, and then make sure that you're improving yourself so that you are more valuable in the marketplace. Um, use our performance loop, which is like realize there's opportunities in the world. There are. Look at all of the opportunities. Start recognizing opportunities that people are saying, like, wow, that guy built another company. That guy built another company. That's a new thing that came out, and every time you walk into you'll see them in like a lot of these fast food joints where you'll see the menus. You can start talking to them. You're like, wow, someone built that. It's kind of cool. I bet you that company made a lot of money when they sold Wendy's or Bojangles or whatever.
Right.
All of those AI and monument. Or you can say, well, that put a lot of people out of jobs at Bojangles. You can look at the negative side of it, but like
Yeah.
you can look at what's happening and how everything is moving forward and find a way to participate in this. So you got to act. You got to start. You got to learn to code, learn how systems are put together. You got to build something. Try to build something, and then stay consistent and look at your progress along the way, and just keep that loop going, and believe that there are opportunities out there. It's really, really large. It's just that we're in this negative news cycle, and people can't see it, but like if you start looking around, you'll do it. I imagine it like this. I was riding, I know I'm going back to my bike because it's my recent experience.
Go
But I
for
was
it.
riding my bike out in the desert, and I noticed something I had never seen before. I noticed a prairie dog. And I'm like, this little prairie dog went across the road. And I'm like, oh, that's a cute little prairie dog. And I stopped and looked, and he came up out of his hole.
Yeah, that's
I'm
cool.
like, oh, he's so cool. He's so cute, like that. But then once I saw the one prairie dog, I started looking around. I'm like, oh, there's a million of these things. These things are like rats. And so like that's where I feel like AI, like start noticing. And then once you start noticing one thing, you start seeing them all over the place. And you'll see the opportunities that are going up. And it's not going to replace developers. It's going to make them more valuable. And I'd still say going forward, there's going to be two jobs, healthcare and this coding thing is still going to be in the top 1 and 2 because it's going to be integrated into every single industry that we have. Now, can
Yep.
you be a salesman? Yeah, 100%. There's always going to be someone selling, hawking the new AI thing for sure, and you can make lots of money doing that. Can you be a marketer? Absolutely. We're going to need to market all these things, but like you're probably going to have to leverage AI when you get in there. So learn how these tools work, how you can leverage them, how you can be better. We're focused on coding, but there's other things out there. This isn't a time to sit on the sideline and do nothing. It's a time to get out there and act and learn something.
I also think one of
And
the big problems with AI that we have recently too is that the people who are creating AI are feeding us that same message because they're trying to sell us.
They want you to buy it.
They want you, yeah. They need you to buy it because it's so expensive. You don't buy it; it doesn't exist, right? So, and those are seen as the experts. So you have people like Sam Altman and Nadella and Bill Gates and the guys from Google, and they're telling you like, oh, this is going to take over because they have to tell you that. And it's like, and they're in a position of power and a lot of influence, right? Over a lot of people. You'd be like, well, if Satya Nadella's telling me that, then it must be. Like that is the future. That is the truth.
Right.
And I just don't see it that way.
The other thing too is like they say one thing, but you always can look at their actions, and so like, they say it and like, well, how many programmers do you have on staff? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you replaced them all? No.
No. Are you going to? Probably not. Zuckerberg said that he was, but I guarantee you his senior devs gave him flack when he came back from that meeting. And I guarantee he said, listen, bro, I got to sell the AI. Like, that's all I'm saying.
Right. Because they're saying, it can't actually do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, it can't actually do that, right? I know you're saying it but it doesn't actually do that. Like, you still need us here to do this thing.
Some kind of certainty of like future thinking. Now, the one at AWS was really say 18 months, all coders will be replaced. I think he has to say that because of stock pricing, because of like they're going to report earnings or whatever, and that AI has to show something on there because they're spending billions and billions of dollars to do this. And if it doesn't, they're they're tanked. He gets fired. Everyone gets fired. At least the senior leadership does.
Yeah, I mean, they've all made too much of a large bet on it, haven't they?
Yes,
Billions. They've bet billions on it, so it has to play out at this point.
Yeah, and so in some ways, absolutely 100% it will. There'll be a bubble, and don't get scared when a lot of these companies go out of business.
Yeah, because everybody's throwing everything at it, right?
Yeah, they're throwing all the money at it.
But this is what should happen, right? They should have, a lot of companies should have a lot of ideas, and they should try and do a lot of things, because that is the positive aspect here, right? And yes, some of those will fail. A lot of them will fail, but some will succeed.
Someone's going to succeed.
There will be something out there that we just haven't thought of that'll implement AI in a certain way. It's like we didn't know Netflix was going to be a thing before Netflix was a thing, right? We didn't know the streaming thing was going to happen. Yeah, Netflix, Blockbuster did not believe it was going to be a thing.
Nope.
So there's something that's going to happen that we just don't see coming, and it might take a minute for it to come, but there'll be lots and lots of success stories out of this.
Yeah, and what always happens when you're not watching a market is the change to you happens suddenly. And I'm telling you right now, this has been going on since 2015. This is a decade coming where they've been building this thing. You saw the chatbot 3 years ago, but that's really not it is. If you don't know what an API is, then you need to learn and say, how could I call that a chatbot, and how do I make things to make it do what it does? That is what people are doing right now. And it's the invention's already happened. It's how do we implement it now? That's the question everyone's asking. And there's a lot of people trying to figure that out. How can I charge for this AI thing? How can I do that? That's really the goal.
What's its killer implementation is the answer, right? That is the thing. That will be the thing that'll happen.
Yeah.
Somebody will integrate it in a certain way that's wow.
Because if you think about killer implementations in life and history and technology we take it for granted now, email. But when email first came out, you're like, well, I don't know, man. We still need to send a letter, right? I mean, write this down.
Not everybody's got one of these email address things.
Yeah. How am I going to send ads? I mean, I need to send my coupon book to them, my Sears and Roebuck shopping book, So email was the killer implementation, and then we had,
and then putting that on the web too was a thing. Having something like Gmail on the web was a thing. It's I can pick up my email from anywhere.
Anywhere?
With,
not
AOL anywhere? Exactly. I don't have to be at home on AOL.
Yeah. So so these inventions happen quickly, but they incubate for 10 years. And I'm telling you, we're on the edge of invention now. So now's the time for you to jump in, learn about API development. How do I call OpenAI or Gemini or Claude or whatever? And then start looking around at problems that you face in your everyday life and go, I wonder how I could use AI to fix that and that. And that is the guy that's going to have a unique insight into a problem. He knows how to code. He's going to put those two together. Yep. And suddenly he's the next Mark Zuckerberg. And you're like, how did that happen? Because Facebook happened. And you're like, how did that happen? It was an app to find girls at Harvard. I mean, how did that happen? Or Stanford, wherever it was,
right.
It did. And then the next thing will happen. And you just got to invest in yourself, invest in your skills and learn. So we think it's still a critical skill that people need to have.
That's it.
Anyway, that's all we got, man.
Let me see if I have a couple more comments. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's see. What did Chris say here? Oh, here we go. Chris said, it's hard to stay positive with all the doom and gloom online with the job market. My solution is to watch the Facebook Tracker walkthrough video. And it'll be a great market for me. No, but I'm sure you joke about this, but that's exactly what we're saying, yeah.
Look at things that people are building, and you're like, wow, they're building that. And so the job market is down comparative to 22, but it's not down compared to 2015. And that's what I want you to understand. Now it's just reasonably good. Before it was on fire. And we may never get back to a 21 hiring unless we close the country down again and everyone has to be inside. But now it's a little different, but it's not doom and gloom. It seems like it because it's less, but it's still really good. I mean, so, and then you add in AI on top of this, it will get super strong again because everyone's going to start building apps and everyone's going to need things to be built and stuff like that. But yeah, look for those positive things and see what's out there.
And if anybody has any amazing app ideas where we could use AI, please let me know.
Let me know. might build it. So,
yeah. We're open to receiving ideas. We talk about this we do talk about this all the time, though, don't we? Like off stream, Bobby and I chat most mornings, and that's one of the things we'll often talk about. Is like, what's the next like killer thing that like?
What's the next thing?
We're always thinking about that. We're like, and we'll be talking about something. Be like, oh, that's a good idea. Like that. I was like, we're always thinking about ways to do it, and often these days it is talking about like, how could AI make that better?
That's the question. If you're a developer, you need to be asking yourself, like, how could it make it better? How could I improve the process?
Yep.
And would people pay for it? That's the two questions. I can make it better. Would they pay for it? And like, figure it out. And then, but you can't do that unless you know how systems are put together. It's really hard to imagine a system if you don't know how systems are put together.
Right.
So, that's it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. This is just what you were talking about, actually. This is focuses. I read everywhere the job market is bad right now, but I see hundreds of jobs on LinkedIn, Indeed, etc. every day. Yeah, and we talk about that too. It's like, again, it's back to Bobby's point that like, bad news leads, right? And even if it is a good job market, even when we're in I look back on when we were in like 2020 and when we were in the heyday, right, of everybody's getting a job, there was still stories then about like the job market sucks. It's like, it's really,
because
so even when it's
markets,
up, it's down.
It did, because like you couldn't go to a physical store anymore. Like
right.
there was like a shift in like how we did.
And it's always looking for the negativity, right, to report on. So it's always going to be that way. It's always going to be that way. Even when it's on a high, people are going to still say it's a low. Right. That's just how
they are, man. You've got
to make your own judgment on it. Yeah, you got to make your own judgment on it. Is there a job for you? Can you find employment doing what you do and what you have chosen to do? Right now, the answer's yeah.
Yeah.
If you're a developer, you can.
Yeah. Now I'll tell you a story. What we do here at Foundry. So like every day we go out and look at the job markets, and then we place them on the Teams channel. So on the rare occasion that I am on vacation, which I was last week, we didn't do that as much that week. And that 1 week, I figured I took the day off. I think it was a Friday we were leaving. I posted one job, and then I went and rode my bike and came back the next week. That one job, one guy applied for, and he's in the second interview today.
I saw that actually. I saw it on Teams right before we jumped on.
And so it's like you have to take the opportunities when they're presented, like whatever those are. And there are opportunities out there. And then we get back to looking now. It's like, we can filter down the juniors, and we're looking across the country. I mean, there's hundreds of them. Like it's like, and how many do you need to have a bull market? Okay, there's not 1 million openings. Okay, so there never was. Like, even in the heyday, we saw 15,000 .NET openings across the U.S. at one given day. Which is a lot. I mean, that's a lot. And so, but if there's a few hundred or 500 or whatever, it's like, okay, apply to those, man. If you've got skills and you think you can win them, apply to them and go win them. Like that's what you do, and keep applying until that happens. And if you get turned down, figure out why you got turned down, figure out and get better. Ask for feedback from those interviews and try to get better at what you're doing. There's opportunities, man. Like there are companies building things. Like I promise you, that's what they're doing. There are companies out there that saying, we're going to make AI work. I guarantee you there's a CTO out there and a CEO that's just pushing the staff right now. Like, we're making this AI thing work.
Right.
You don't understand. This is the biggest thing since sliced bread, and we're going to make it happen. And there's a lot of people out there that are going to make it happen. But a lot of us are going to sit on the sideline and do nothing because we're afraid of getting turned down or waste our time. I never thought it was a waste of time to improve yourself. If you're working on you, like it's never a waste of time. If you're going to the gym, it's a waste of time. No, it's not. It's always get in better shape. It's never a waste of time to learn a new skill. Like, I don't care what the skill is. Is it a waste of time to me to learn how to make the perfect steak? Am I ever going to work in a steak restaurant? Probably not. But
but I would love to reap the benefits of that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good thing to know. I mean, I can make a steak. But so I think you should always improve yourself.
Chris has an app idea here. Look, it says AI app idea: content creation. Have AI write a script, generate a thumbnail, create B-roll video snippets, and put it all together. Use APIs like we did for AI Chef. I'm pretty sure this is already a thing. I think I've seen.
But you can do it. You should.
You can do it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm saying this is a good idea.
I say when we made AI Chef, B-roll wasn't possible. It is sort of possible now. Like it's getting more and more likely.
It's better.
It absolutely can write a script. it absolutely can generate a thumbnail, depending on which one you use.
Yep.
You know,
Yep. Our friend Paul, Code 30, has done some interesting things with videos and generating scripts and transcribing things, and he's done a lot of stuff with that. He's a guy who's thinking about this stuff, isn't he? Too. He's thinking about like how can I inject AI into a load of different places, and he's come up with some good ideas.
But Chris, what I would say is, even if your ideas at first we said it's already been done, it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to do it.
I think that's not a negative thing. That's a positive thing.
I think there's going to be 25 services or 100 services that do that. Like there is in the creator economy, there's a ton of stuff that can still be made in the creator space.
100%.
Like if you're a creator, can I improve my workflow? Because a lot of the creators are one-man shops. They're not good at thumbnails. They suck at some parts of it, and they're like, if AI can help them do it, that'd be great.
Imagine if we quit making streaming services when Netflix came out. Like, imagine, look at how many we've got today. There's a bunch of them. Like, they all do different things. There's a lot of them. Like, just because it exists is actually a good reason to make something.
Yeah, I miss the days of cable now. Like, I think it was cheaper.
It was definitely cheaper. I did my math on mine, and I don't want to talk about how much I spent per month on streaming. It's way too much. It's way too much.
How did that happen? So I was paying $2 a channel. Now I'm paying $19.
Let's finish on this from Shane. Hey, Shane. I haven't spoken to you in ages. It says he loves grilling steak.
The question is, Shane, do you love grilling steak for others? That's the main thing. Like, you're just grilling for yourself. That's okay. I'm sure it's great.
Yeah, if you want me to test a steak, Shane, I'll happily do that for you.
Give you a 5-star review. That's what we can do.
I'm definitely up for that. Cool. Okay, let's get out of here. We'll be back again next week. Talk about something else. I don't know what yet.
All right. So we'll
be there.
Probably Friday. Maybe do some live coding Friday if we have time.
Oh yeah, we'll do some live coding. Yeah. We still need to. What are we doing next on live coding? By the way, do you remember?
So Obscure, we're still working on that. We need to make a sidebar that allows the settings so you can pick your own genre, maybe your own decade. Maybe if you want 70s horror flicks, something like that. Something obscure. Test your 1940 dramas. Something like that. So so we want to set those in there and see if you can. Yes, those posters, and then maybe an instruction page, something like that. And then I think we're kind of done at that point. We've built our game. We may add maybe put the trailer somewhere. Someone had a good idea, so we may add.
That was a good idea. Yeah. Link up the trailer somewhere. Yeah, that was good because that's part of the API, right? Having the trailer in there is an option, and I like that because I also liked that that solution wasn't as simplistic as like just check a box and bringing a trailer, because there's lots of videos and filtering the video and getting that part right was interesting.
You got to destroy the players in JavaScript. So I have to use a little interrupt with Blazor to be able to destroy the player and then invent the player.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool. By the way, Shane said he will grill us some steaks for a CF hat.
That's a pretty good trade.
That's a great trade for us. That's a great trade. I'll take that.
I have a bucket of CF hats over here. So I can eat for days.
Come by, Shane. Grab a CF hat, but bring steak. All right, let's roll. We'll get out of here.
All right, we'll see you guys later.
We'll see everybody later.
Keep cutting.
Bye.